goes. Alright, Carter's Iron Works, how we doing? I started to start my fire, and then when I started my broadcast, I was late. I looked up and I was losing a bunch of frames. I had a whole bunch of dropped frames. So I had a bad connection. I had to go up to the house and reset my range extender. And while I was doing that, my fire did not light. So now I got to relit my fire. But it's not the end of the world. If you're wondering what I'm using, this is candle wicks. My wife works at a company that makes candles, so I take this candle wick and I light it up and then use that instead of newspaper, because it's getting hard to find newspaper anymore without buying a paper just to burn it. Just a little air. Start putting some coke in there. You see it's smoking a little bit. I'm not worried about it. My chimney draws well. Give it a chance to get going before I pile a ton of coal on it. And my bin here, I have a spot here that drops down where I put coal that I can just keep shoveling up into my fire. My bin's empty, so I got to get another bag and throw that in there. Yeah, well, like I said, it was dropping like 9.6% of the frames, and like right now I'm dropping 0.0%. So when I drop a large number like that, I have to go reset the range extender for the router. I really should just get another one. I mean, I've had that one for probably almost 10 years. I'm sure they've got better ones now. All right, let this get going. I still got a lot of white smoke, which means it's primarily still just the wicks burning, so I don't want to turn the air up too much yet. Not until I start to see some of that greenish, brownish smoke. But in the meantime, get another bag of coal out. But yeah, if you watched last week, I started building a billet, pattern welded billet, and I started with I think 13 layers, and then drew it out, cut it, and nicked it in 3 spots and folded it so that now I have essentially 4 times 13, which would be 48, 52. So I'm probably not going to build up anymore. I thought about doing it one more time, repeating that process, do it one more time. But then I thought to myself, I'm going to twist this. So when I do the twist, that's going to, you know, essentially make more layers. They're just going to be in a different orientation, I guess. Okay, I'll crank up a little bit more air. I'm starting to see some of that dark smoke. And then I'll drop this hood down until it starts burning good and the chimney warms up. It draws a lot better on really cold days, believe it or not. Because all I gotta do is open that up. This is, I usually keep this building at about 50 degrees. So if I come out and it's a 30-degree day and it's 50 degrees in here, you open it and it starts drafting just off the natural temp difference before you even light the fire. So I'm looking for my knife and I'm not seeing it. So we're going to let this fire establish. Hopefully I didn't turn the air on too fast and blow it right out. Sometimes I'll start it with a lot more green coal because then it lights easier than the coke. It just makes more smoke, but I hate it when I rush it, because when I rush it, that's when it'll go out and not light, and it'll always be while you're doing a live stream. But anyway, here's the billet. I went ahead and cut off the ends because I knew I was going to have cold shuts on the ends, because when I did the folds, they didn't line up perfectly. And I don't think this fire is going to light. Grab out some more wick. Give it another try. Yeah, I need to find somebody that actually reads the paper and have them save me the Sunday paper or whatever, the daily paper. There's a little bit still going in the bottom, but it would have been very slow lighting, so. Let's do this again. So what have you been up to? Working on anything good? Alright, let's try lighting it again. going to make it smoke more, I'm going to throw some fresh coal right on there. Because the fresh coal does light easier than the coke. I'm just picking some bigger pieces, and once in a while I get a hot one. Because I just tore that down and it did have a little going. Alright. Let's not rush it this time, because, well, getting cobblers ready to cook for cleaning up the remnants of your shop. I'm sorry, I don't know. What happened to your shop? At the rate I'm going, I'll be lucky if I do much more than twist this. But nah, we'll get farther than that. But it'll probably be a pretty long stream if I go ahead and make the entire spatula out of this piece of Damascus billet. Sorry, pattern welded billet. Alright, I'm just going to let it go a little slower and start this time because it's a pain. From hotels. They get them in there, always take it away, so when they're old and you have them. Alright, so what happened to your shop? I can't find, I usually keep a razor knife down here, sitting over here in this area, but I don't see it. I may have used it for something else and not put it back down here where it belongs. Wouldn't be the first time. But, yeah, I'll probably just heat up the end of a poker and use that to open up a bag. I'll just take my fireplace poker or my forge poker and just heat up the end and just use that to open up the bag. As soon as this comes up to the top, in the meantime, I'll give myself a drink. Just got a little blowback and it sent some smoke out into the shop, so I lowered my hood until it gets good and warm. And burner power line for Jack. Burned and took out my wood shop and blacksmith shop. That sucks. And it was probably an act of God, so homeowners didn't cover it. So if we ever get this fire lit, you know, then maybe we'll do some forging here. I am going to be doing a bunch over there on the power hammer. First thing I'm going to do is I'll leave probably, you know, an inch or 3/4 of an inch on each end square so that I can grab it and twist it. I'm going to round up the whole bar in between. And I'll do that over on the power hammer. starting to get some nice brown smoke in there, so that means my coal is actually catching on fire, and it's not just the wicks burning. Give until the 15th of June to clean up the mess. Start rebuilding after June. Okay. How big was your shop? I mean, mine's pretty small. My whole shop is 12 by 24. So nothing too impressive here. I'm going to give it just a little bit more air. I think it's established and some of the coal has started burning. But I don't want to give it too much and blow it right out. But I'm starting to get some color in the smoke, so. It was our museum property. They didn't want insurance to pay, so I get to fork out the money if I want a shop. Okay. Let me hang on a sec here. Adjustment here. Give me a couple seconds here. Alright, now I can see what you can see. And I'm 0.5 on drop frame, so it should be halfway decent. Both 12 by 12 now have 6 barrels of charcoal, and I'm not done yet. Well, I'd rather not burn my shop down just to have some charcoal to forge with. But I guess if you're really desperate. Alright, now it's looking pretty good. Starting to get some flames coming up through. Good signs, good signs. Alright, now I can turn my air up pretty good and get it going. She's established. I at least don't have to make any more until next year. Yeah. Well, I mean, do you usually use charcoal or do you use, I mean, I'm using regular bituminous coal, mining coal. I've never really been a big fan of charcoal. I tried it a couple times. And I'll be honest with you, when I did try it, I also was using bellows. Which, I don't care for bellows. I mean, I don't need an electric fan. I don't mind the hand crank. But I just dislike bellows. And both places that I used bellows at, well, they weren't too bad to use when I was at Cooperstown Farmers Museum. We had a couple meets there, and I was, you know, using their forge at the museum. And that one wasn't too bad, and it had bellows. But when I worked, demonstrated a couple times at Lake St. Marie among the Iroquois, had bellows, but the bellows was really small, so it was a pain. I'm trying to think of where else I used bellows. I know I've used them more than just those two places. I think there was a third place, but I can't remember off the top of my head. Alright, we're starting to get some heat. That's an easy way to open my coal. Just heat up the poker and use the poker to burn the bag. Get that cutter back. Get my hammer out. Set it over there on that table. Yeah, she's going good now. Hang up some of these holes that I got left out. These ones I'll be using. Go back up there for now. Well right there holds about half a bag of coal. Now I can just shovel it from here right over next to my fire, let it bank up. I've actually got a wall of bricks in between, but they're not, I can move them. They're not mortared in or anything. I can move them at will. And all right. Got a fire lit. Get a little extra in there. Break our coke dome, I call it, up. All right, so now we got our piece. We're going to put it in, and I'm going to round it up and leave a chunk on each end. Square. I got to decide if I want to make that section smaller and round it up, or if I want to leave it like 3/4 and round it, because 3/4 is going to twist harder than, you know, 1/2 inch will. If I made it 1/2 inch, it would twist easier, but I got to remember I'm going to flatten it back down to like 1/4 by 1 bar when I'm done, and if I make it half that now, that's not going to leave me a lot to squish down and spread back out. Hey Rob, it goes horrible. It goes horrible. I lit my fire, and when I started I had a bunch of drop frames, and I went up, had to shut down everything and go reset my my router extender, range extender for my router. And then I came back down and the fire wasn't lit, so we pretty much just sat here for the last I don't know what time it is now. 6:30, so we've sat here for probably the last 20 minutes just relighting the fire. It's going good now. We're going to go ahead and round up that bar and leave a chunk of square on each end. This is that piece of pattern welded billet that I started with last time. I'm going to put a good twist in it, and then after that we'll hammer it back out flat to about 1/4 by 1 inch, and take that and go ahead and make a spatula, but I don't know if we're going to get all that done tonight. A lot of times during the demos I have a bad habit of pulling stuff out too early because I'm getting impatient. So you know, I pull stuff out too early, I'll work it too late. I don't want to do it with this because it's a piece of pattern welded. So I will be, like I said, I don't know if I'm going to get this done tonight. And then after it's done, this is because I'm going to do it pretty much other than using the power hammer. I'm going to use most of it's going to be done by hand. Probably much of the file work will be done by hand. Alright, so I'm going to push this right through and leave some of it hanging out the die on the back side of my dies, and then start rounding up an area. So you can see I've left some square on the end. Well, you really can't see because it's too hot, but I don't want to lose too much heat. I left some square on the end, and I pretty much rounded up the bar about to the halfway point. Now I'll flip it over and I'll do the same thing on the other end. Who knows, if it goes like that tonight, it's much better than it did the other night. Maybe I will get a lot farther along than I thought. So now we'll heat up the other end. We'll leave a square section, round up a bunch. We'll clamp it into place. We'll get our trusty old twisting wrench out. This is just one of them, you know, sliding. We used to call them monkey wrenches. I don't know what everybody else calls them. But with a handle welded on the other end. And that handle is bent because I've reached on that quite a bit. You know, if you look at the handle, it's bent up here. Because I just grabbed it and yanked on it really hard. And bent it. Like I said, I decided I could have folded it again and increased the layer count, because right now it's at 13 times 4, which is going to be 13 and 13 is 26, 50, 52, 54. I don't know. All right. Alright, so that went pretty fast. Do a little straightening here. I like to keep it straight in between and not just wait until it gets way out of whack and then try to adjust it then. Okay, starting to cool down. You can see So I left it square out on the end and rounded it up, left it square on both ends. We'll go back in, we'll heat up a good chunk, and then we'll put a twist in it. I mean, you can go up and put, you know, pretty high layer counts. I know that that's right about 3/4, so I'll use this bar to set this. You think what's the same thing? Sorry, Rob, but there might be a delay. And because I'm planning on twisting, I'm going to do more than just like one twist. I'm going to twist it pretty good. So because I'm planning on doing a pretty good twist, I'm going to heat it up. Oh, I shouldn't have worn a t-shirt, man. It really shows off how fat I'm getting. Yeah, I'll stop there because it's getting to the point where I try to keep the heat up really pretty high when I'm working with pattern welded so that I'm not getting it too cold. It's pretty hard to see the twist in there, especially if it's hot, so I'm going to move on. The other problem that I have is that I may go back and do some twisting more later on as well, because the spade part of the spatula, you know, down here is going to have lines running across it, but up through here you're going to stretch it so much that the lines are going to be more, you know, stretched out. So what I may do is make this part, when I get that rounded up, put more twist back into it. This was just a goofing off one. I've been working on trying to get these to look halfway decent for a while. I don't blacksmith a whole lot. Lately, if I wasn't coming out here doing these live streams, I wouldn't be blacksmithing probably hardly at all. I mean, this is about all the blacksmithing I've been doing lately. Oh yeah, the wrench. I'm just heating up a little farther up the bar, getting a good heat in it. Gonna twist some more. Obviously, till I get to the other end of the bar, and then we'll go make this into like a 1/4 by 1. And the blocks on both ends will need to get cut off. And those are waste, which you get a lot of that. You get a lot of waste when you're doing this, but I keep throwing all them pieces that I cut off into a bucket. Someday I'm going to throw them all in a canister and weld them together. Just scrap ends and whatnot. Yeah, I could. I mean, probably should. I'm going to keep going, same direction. I'm not counting, just twisting until it looks right. Like I said, this is all going to be, it's not going to stay the same twist in the end because you're going to be working with it and forging it. If you were doing just a, you know, like making a knife and you did this and then after this you went and just did stock removal, then it would be a different story, but all right. I don't like to let things get too far, too crooked and too out of whack, even though it doesn't matter because I'm just going to go in and twist some more. But I don't know. One of the blacksmiths that I used to look up to a lot, you know, he was a professional blacksmith, did high-end stair railings and stuff. And he always told me he always straightened his material back out before he went back into the fire. He didn't let things just keep getting worse and worse and worse. So I started doing that 25 years ago. You know, lots of times I'll straighten it back out, even though I know when I pull it out, I'll probably clamp it in there and bend it again. I can start working on challenges for the group. I could, if I could keep track of them. Oh, and next weekend I'm going to be at my New York State Designer Blacksmith has a 2-day all-hands meet in Bath, New York, and I'm going to be at that event for both days, so I will not be doing a live stream next weekend. Like I said, I'm taking it up, keeping the heat up. I'm not letting this get really cold because there's so many layers of steel that you don't want to start coming apart. It's amazing, on the end that's cold I can see the twist a lot better, and I can see okay. I got an area from there to there that doesn't have very much twist. So even though this is, you know, 1080 and 15N20, and you're not supposed to quench them in water, I will quench that end in water, but I'm not going to stick it in there and just leave it in there. I'm just going to plunge it real quick a couple times, just enough to harden that first 2 inches or 3 inches up so that I can get the twist to come in lower. And twist in the area that doesn't have any twist. Because it was twisting right below the wrench a lot, but a couple inches below that it wasn't twisted at all, or hardly at all. So alright, so you see I'll pull it out, and I didn't cool it. it just enough so that hopefully I can get it to twist down in here. Which is working. And because I didn't quench it, you know, I didn't throw it in there, leave it in there, swirl it around. I'm not worried about cracks in it. And I'm looking at it just like you would look at like screw threads and trying to see how even they are over the length of that. And they're pretty good. So for now, we're going to call that twisted. I'm going to pull it, oh, excuse me. I'm going to pull it out. I'm going to brush it off real quick with the wire brush. Let it cool down just a little bit. Excuse me, a little bit so you guys can see. Hopefully you'll be able to see the twisting. But if you were paying attention to how many times I was twisting it, you'll have some idea of what it's going to look like. I don't know if you can see. The lines from that twist, but they're about that angle right there. And all I'm doing now is just cleaning it up so I can see, although I don't know why, because I'm going to work it more and it's going to change depending on how much, you know, like the flat part I'm going to draw down and widen out, but I'm not going to make it very much longer. So that's really not going to change much, but the shank is going to get drawn out. So I don't know why I'm worried about getting it even. Yeah, you can probably see it there. But I put quite a bit of twist. So now these ends are no good. If I wasn't doing a live stream, I'd just let this cool. And I would let it cool and I would take the hot cut, or sorry, I would take it over and just throw it in a bandsaw and cut it off, but we'll go ahead and hot cut it off. I know my hot cut doesn't have that curve, you know, that curve like everybody else's does. I just never got around to making one that style. This one came with the anvil 30 years ago. And I've been using it and it works fine, so I just keep using it. Alright, so we'll go ahead and we'll cut off up past the twist and cut that little block off, and then that block will go into my my pile of scrap pattern welded pieces that someday I will stack up and weld into a can or something. And alright, so let me get up into it. I should have plenty, so I don't have to worry about you can see most of the way cut off. Then I'll just grab another pair of tongs, grab onto it, and finish breaking it off. That piece I'll just set up here and let it cool. I'm going to heat the end of that up, kind of square it up a little bit. And then I'll flip it around, heat the other end, do the same thing on the other end, and then we'll go make it into a like quartered by 1 bar. And then the nice thing about pattern welded or Damascus, you know, I just call it Damascus. Damascus is like calling it a Kleenex instead of a tissue paper, you know. It's just like a brand name, basically. Some people get awful hot about it, you know. All right. Back, I'm going to flip, go back in on the other end. We'll cut the other end off, get rid of the part that doesn't have any twist in it because that's where the wrench was or where it was clamped in the vise. And then after that, I'll heat it back up. I'm not even going to show you. Once it's off, it's off. I'll throw it right back in the fire. And then pull it out, go over there, and we'll make it like a quarter by 1 bar. I really wish I had time, and I took that other camera and put it over there. Because you guys can kind of see, you know, on the camera back there, what I'm doing here. To be honest with you, it looks almost as big as the other camera, you know, on the Amble cam. There's very little difference, so I could have took that other camera, stuck it over there by the power hammer so you can see what I'm doing, but I'm not doing anything really spectacular over there. Or anything much beyond, you know, what I can easily just explain so you can understand without seeing. This is that coal that I hate. Makes a lot of clinker, and the clinker does not stick together. It falls apart. You can't dig out a nice big chunk of clinker. It's a pain right in the butt to work with. And, you know, I usually like my coal to be about that size, you know. And this stuff, you know, I've gotten some pretty big ones in. But I throw it up there, it cokes up pretty good. And then I just smack it and the coke falls apart. It works. I'm just not a big fan of this coal. Makes a lot of clinker, doesn't stick together, hard to clean. And I wouldn't even mind the amount of clinker that it makes if it stuck together so that I could dig it right out. Get it most of the way. Break it off. Back in the fire. Put that piece up there to cool. Goes back in the rack. This rack, these are the tongs that I use the most. There's another rack identical to it on the other side, that's full, completely full of tongs that I hardly ever use. And some of the ones I hardly ever use are because they're like the Ken's custom iron tongs where you buy the blanks and stuff. And don't get me wrong, I used them for years. But then I eventually went out and bought decent tongs, you know, and with the, you know, with the decent tongs, I just don't use the old ones anymore. That's just wanting the end out. Alright, now we'll take a good heat, we'll go over there and we're going to make that into a chunk of 1/4 by 1. So a lot of times I'll take a piece right over there with me so that I can hammer down and I can kind of look at it and look over at what I'm working on. And get it closer. I'm going to take a real good heat because I'm going to be moving this a lot. And like I said, you just got, you know, slight differences in how the metal reacts between the layers. So you try to keep the temp up, and you know, if you're going to work a lot, you keep it really hot. And by a lot, I just mean you're making big drastic changes in the dimension. I got the bar over here kind of just hanging out here, and I can just reach over and compare it for my width, and I'm eyeballing my quarters. Don't dare work it any colder. I still have heat, but it looks black. Alright. As you guys can see, now, before I go back in, that's about half of it. I'm just a little bit fat of the quarter. I'm going to take one more heat, take it down a little bit thinner. It's almost dead on 1 inch because I've got the other one, and I kind of hammer in the sides and then I just turn, and if you notice, the other one is sitting right here. and I just take it over and I hold it next to it and I can see if I'm at the right width. Then once I get that, I'll flip it, heat up the other end, do the other end. And then I'll have the material ready to start the project. Not bad, huh? 36 by, whew, mostly old tongs, a few I've made. I have a handful of kits that I just got. Yeah, I've got old ones and I've got ones that I've made. But it's going to sound real sad. I'm liking that. So you can see I brought it down. I'm about 1/4 of an inch thick now and about 1 inch wide. Now I'll flip it and do the other side. Like I said, I hate to admit it, but I had a bunch of homemade tongs, and the Ken's Custom Irons actually were so much better than my homemade tongs that I ordered a bunch of them and made them instead. But then, I don't know, I just decided to do other things other than just making tongs too, so. I mean, if I had the time to go out and spend, you know, more time in the forge, yes, I wish I would make more tongs. I wish I would make more, you know, of my own tooling. But the time I get to spend out here is very limited lately. I still want to play around with this piece of copper at some point. This is like 1 inch diameter copper. Might just take that to quad state and we'll make something crazy out of it. But yeah, I wish I would have made more of my tongs and stuff. Because, you know, every pair of tongs that you make, even the bad ones, is just making you a little better as you progress. But I didn't. I wanted to make more projects and stuff like that. And I've got a few big projects that people have seen and some nice stuff, but there's 10 times that and, you know, stuff that I consider garbage that I made in between. I don't even see a post from Alexis. Weird. Alright, we'll go back over and we'll make the other one. Start bringing the other one down to the same size. Like I said, this hammer isn't the greatest in the world. It's a homemade one. I made it 15 years ago probably. And but it is a lot faster than I can do it by hand by myself. All right. So now you can see it's flattened out. It's about 1/4 by 1. I'm going to flip it back around and start on that end, because that end was thicker, a little bit thicker, or a little bit, sorry, not thicker, but a little bit wider than the other end, and that's the end where I'm going to make the thing, the blade of the spatula. So now I'm going to look for the other hammer. I sat down somewhere. Because I just don't want to use my good hammer hitting on this guillotine tool, and I'm going to use this. It's right there, right in front of my face. I'm going to use this. I have been trying to do it without using the guillotine tool. Mixed results, because I'm messing with a piece of pattern welded, and you know, I've got all this time just into making the piece so that I can start the project. I will I'll use the guillotine tool, heat up. I know that I'm going to get a lot of stretch this direction, not much in this direction. I want it to be a little bit longer, so normally I only take about 2 inches. I'm going to leave 3.5 inches sticking through there. And I'm just guessing. I'll pull it out, flatten it down. It's nowhere near yet, but I'm going to heat it back up. Keep that heat up because it's a piece of pattern weld. And I just want to say, because it's a piece of Damascus all the time, because, you know, like I said, you get, if you start doing that, you get that one dumbass that constantly, well, you know, true Damascus was roots iron and wrought iron, or root steel and wrought iron and blah, 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 blah. And it's just not worth, you know, arguing with him that basically Damascus is like calling Kleenex instead of tissue paper, or, you know, Charmin instead of toilet paper. So we'll bring this down. I'm not going to take it all the way down. I'll take it down to probably about 1/2 inch wide. And then we'll take a section in behind it and square it up. And every time I work with this, I'm reminded of how much harder it is than just using plain mild steel. Okay, so that's good right there. And my channel here, you know, is really small. Most of the people here have met me in real life, and we've hung out and we've blacksmithed together, you know, or we've known each other through Yamas' you know, strings for years, but even then, most of them I've met at Quad State and stuff that actually are here. And I don't mind that because at least I don't get the, you know, the 1,700 jerks that are on there that just want to comment about how you're doing it wrong all the time. Yeah, well, you know, you can't fight everything all the time, Alexis. Sometimes you just gotta say, it's easier just to, you know, nah. I want that curve, so I'm gonna put it on that side. It's a nice thing about having an anvil that you can spin around. One side's pretty sharp, the other side's got a curve. All right, I'll see you later, Carter. You can see I'm just drawing that down to that point that I've isolated. Then I'll probably tip it and start doing the same thing on the other end. You know, I might use the guillotine tool and guillotine in some here. Maybe I'll do it that way. I mean, I've already started using it. Like I said, lately I've been trying to do it without it, just with hammer control. But that has mixed results. Well, it's squinting enough with my left eye. I'm surprised you could see my left eye. These aren't the most, you know, high quality cameras. And you're trying to look at me from all the way over here in Australia. I'm surprised the picture's not upside down. Alright, so I'm going to guess I want maybe a little bit more than that. But I got to guess about how much that's going to be because I didn't make, you know, 1 or 2 or 10 as prototypes to determine, you know, I mean, if I was making a whole bunch and they all had to be the same, and I would take different steps, and I see a crack right there, which means that this whole project may be garbage. I'm going to go right there, and I'm going to hope that I can take this up to welding heat and save it later and proceed for a little more and then try to fix that crack. Someday I'll weld a shank to this so I can put it down in my hardy hole and it won't move all over the place. You can see I'm bringing it down there. You can see right there is the crack. Which may have been a cold shut that just showed up when I twisted it. And it would be cheating, but if I let it cool down and I walked over there and just ground out that crack, it'll probably be fine after that. So I may end up doing that. So that I can save the billet and continue on by grinding that in like maybe 1/4 of an inch deep in that one spot. Once I get past that, then it should be fine. And that's the nature of the beast sometimes. You get it just a little too cold or, you know, something like that. It definitely is too far up into the bar to be from when I quenched it to make the twist even. Turn it up a little bit, get a little more heat going here. But like I said, I may be able to just grind out that section. I mean, I can do it traditionally if I just grab a file and, you know, or a rasp and hot rasp out that whole section. But I mean, yes, there's more traditional ways to do it. But traditionally, the only ones that would have been working with these types of materials would have been very, very accomplished smiths back in the day. You can see there, you can see that's where that crack is. We've got a few ways we can deal with that, I suppose. Maybe what I'll do is I'll just hot cut it off. I mean, why not, right? Yeah, that's all right. Turtle dust. We'll let it slide. Because I'm pretty convinced that once I get that little piece out, it doesn't go any deeper than maybe 3/16 of an inch. And if I just cut that piece right out, then it won't matter. I see Rob over there cringing right now because I'm banging flats. We're just drawing that down. We're going to get that section down to square before we go any farther. What I'm doing now is I'm getting that down while I'm going down the square because I did have one. It may be a delaminated layer, but when it twists around to the next one, which is going to be a little farther down, I want to make sure it's not a delaminated layer that's going to basically chase the whole length, just keep showing up every couple inches or so. Hey, Tim. All right. Once again, we're just stretching it out. Like I said, it's not mild steel, so it works a little harder. And I don't want to damage the edges, so I'm kind of not swinging for all I can. Yeah, so we got Carter was here, Turtle Dust was here, Lex is probably still here, Tim finally showed up, Rob's here. I think that's about it. But like I said, the nice part about not having a ton of subscribers is I don't have to deal with the jerks that all think they're experts. I don't claim to be an expert, but I sure know a lot more than half these idiots on the internet. Still going, just trying to get it down to square. The only thing is, I'm not working the heat down very far. Once it cools, I'm going back in the fire. Then once we get this, maybe 1 or 2 more heats, then I'll figure out what I want to do with that spot that's got I think it's just a cold shut that I didn't catch until after I made the twist. Because I'm not seeing any down in the other part that I'm stretching. In theory, if you keep that up close to welding temp, you could weld it right back together. My eyes aren't what they used to be, so that's why you see me leaning way down. When I start getting close and I'm trying to get this really even, it's hard to see, so I get way down right on top of it. So if I'm letting this cool down a little bit, you can see that crack. I don't know if you can see it yet. It's right there. Right there. So I got a couple choices. I could flux it and try to weld it back together, or I could just remove that section and it may be a D-lam because that's there and there's another one right here, which would be on the twist. Well, that changes everything. I don't want to go too far on it if it's not going to work. I think I'm just going to grind some of it out. Okay, you see I ground that whole corner off. And I still see part of it, but it's not very much. I'm going to grind a little more out. I want to so bad grab this thing. Now I'm definitely past it. You can see I ground it, but then I ground right in. And I am definitely past it, so. Now the question is, I've got way more mass than I need up here because it's still a 1/4 of an inch thick or more. Let me go back and we'll make that a little bit longer, and at the same time we'll make it thinner. I might go do some of it right on the power hammer. I might go do some of that right on the power hammer, just so that I can get nice even thickness from one end to the other through this section here. Then, like I said, then I still got to spread all that and make the handle, but the handle is only, you know, like 1/8 of an inch thick maybe, and right now that piece is, you know, like 1/4 of an inch thick, so I have way more than I need. Which is fine, I can cut off whatever I don't need in the end. But I'm also not going to be rounding it. Like on these, I put it in the swatch block and rounded this. Because if I do that, I've got to sand or file all that. So flat surfaces will work better. Come on. Let it get cold so that I can grind it. Now it's really cold. And yeah, I do have a bad habit of going over there and using the power hammer when I probably should be here doing the hammer. Yeah, you know what, I'll do the hammer. We're getting some good heat up. Yeah, and like I said, for those who weren't here earlier, next weekend I have a 2-day blacksmith meeting, so I will not be streaming next week. Actually, this is wrong. I don't want to do that, because it's already off to one side and it's just going to make it worse. You can see I'm starting to, I pinched off a little bit farther back. Make it a little bit longer. Drop an anvil. Get that here out of the way. That's one of them Harbor Freight ones. The Castile one. So I guess my hammer control is never going to get better if I keep using the power hammer, so I guess I might as well stay over here and just keep going by hand, even though I know it'll take me 4 or 5 heats to do what I can do over there in one. So right now I'm just going for even consistency and taking that down to square. Like I said, probably would have been done 3-4 heats ago if I just walked over the power hammer and did it there. But that's probably why I don't have the hammer control that I should have. Yeah, I took my hat off, no jokes. So, Lexi, Tim, what have you guys been working on? You gotta about have that that down under forge there about done and ready to start cooking, aren't you? Okay, so before I go any farther, this spot here, because it's drawn out so much, the twist isn't going to be as tight in there anymore. So I might heat that section up and just add some more twist to it after I round it. So I'll go ahead and round it right now. Alright, let me start rounding some of this up. Just going kind of slow so I don't overshoot it. Right now I'm about the 8-sided octagon. I'm going to heat up and work half and then work the other half. Go pretty close to round. And you got to remember I'm going to end up having to take all of this later and work it down. But like I said, now because I've stretched it out so much, the twist, instead of being a line across the bar like this, is going to be a big line up the bar. So I want to put more twist back into that area. So I'll round it up and add some more twist to it. It's at that point when most people think you're just spinning it, but you're actually picking out the high spots and not just spinning it, because that won't push the high spots back in. It'll damage, you'll make your low spots just as low as your high spots, or where you want the high spots to be. You know what I'm saying? You're hitting the highs and the lows, and you don't want that. You want to hit just the highs. Not very talkative tonight. I mean, I don't even care if these guys talk to each other. I got a moth on my floor. I don't know if a hot piece of scale fell on him. He's been kind of down there flopping around for a while. Right on the other side of my anvil. Okay, so now that we've got this area rounded up, I'm going to go ahead and take a good heat on it. Try to get an even heat over the whole length. Which can sometimes be difficult in the coal forge, but you just keep moving it back and forth while it's warm enough. You can get a pretty even longer heat. And then I'll clamp it in the vise and add some more twist to that shank. Then we'll start working on the handle end. And after I got all that done, then I'll go down and I'll spread out the other end and get it to its finished state. Okay, so I'm going to twist the same direction that I was before, which is clockwise. And that's just so that I can put some tighter twist up in that section that I drew out. Not worried particularly about getting it perfect. Alright, now I'm going to heat up here and start to taper that back away from that. This is going to be pretty cool. You know, when it's done, it should be a pretty cool looking piece. I just don't know. I mean, if I'm bored and don't have anything else to do, maybe I'll do a live stream where I'm just sitting here spending an hour or two filing. That's one way to get rid of my viewers. So I guess what I'm kind of do is I'm going to come back, but as I'm coming back, I'm going to go from 1/4 inch and make it thinner. Once I get back into the handle. And the other thing is I also have to make sure that whatever I do, I know that I'm not leaving a bunch of parts where it's going to be hard to get in and clean and whatnot, you know, when I'm cleaning it up so that I can sand it and then etch it. Now I did have, I'm pretty close to that area where I had that cold shut that I ground out, so I'm going to take this up and get it right to welding heat when I work this area. Now I got that taper, but I'm still really thick for a handle. Which, I mean, I could leave it that thick if I'm making a, like make the one side round and grind a lot of that away. In order to do it right. Or to give me a handle that's thinner on the sides and thicker in the center, rather than pushing it into the swatch block and then having to try to clean this backside where it's. Or I could thin it out. Thinning it out because I know that from here on out it's going to be thinner as I get up towards that end. I could go over and do it in the power hammer a lot easier. Extruding last night's dinner. Oh, nice. Thanks for sharing, Rob. Thanks for sharing. All right. It's still pretty thick in that area. So you can see I'm starting to reduce the thickness there, but it's starting to get wider on me. I'm going to have to tuck that back in. Like I said, I may go to the power hammer and do some of this. exercising the log cutter. Yeah, I don't know if that's, oh yeah, never mind. I got it. Your joke was basically the same as Rob's. I don't even know why I bother these days. These clowns, I tell you. Alright, going way up, welding top. Nice and hot, I'm starting to see some slime on the surface. So just got some more done. Starting to work it back. I figure I've got probably about 2 extra inches on there anyway, but I'm not going to need. I just have to decide when I'm going to get to the point where I want to cut it off. Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I think Tim is easily offended. And I'm also going to get to the point where I'm going to say, hey, if I keep going, I'm going to start making mistakes. And it's 8 o'clock now. I knew this was going to be a multiple episode project. We may be picking this up after I get back. Nice and hot. Starting to get a good reduction in thickness from here down to there. Starting to get 3/16 or so down there. We'll go another heat or two, get it thinner. Ideally, I want to taper it from the shaft back into the handle and have it, you know, like taper from 1/4 inch down to about 1/8 inch. I'm not going to go much below 1/8 inch. Then it just gets too flimsy. And I got to remember, I've also got to take this. After it's all said and done and it's made, I'll have to heat it up and I'll have to quench it in oil and harden it, and that otherwise the pattern doesn't show as well. And if you get it too thin, it likes to warp when you quench. See, that's drawn back. This is still full thickness from about there out. Ow. I'm starting to get thinner in behind it. starting to get to the point where I'm looking at deciding where I want to cut it off here pretty soon. Oh, neat. Well, it looks like just Rob and Alexis, pretty much, so I guess there's no point in asking who's going to Quad State. I know he is and she isn't. Alright, let's cut some material off, get rid of some extra. I really think I've got way more than I need. I'm going to cut about 3 inches right off that. There is no sense in moving a whole bunch of material that you're not going to use. Alright, let's get rid of some of that. What do we do with our chunks? We throw them up here. Up. We throw them up here to cool, and then we throw them in our little bucket over there of scraps of pattern welded that medical procedures. Yeah. What are they adding? I mean, they're going to give you a lobotomy or addictomy or what? You know, priorities. Poof. Poof, priorities. I'm going to spin this around, put my curved side back on this side. Alright. Now I guess I can get a little more. A little more aggressive with the drawing out. You can see all the dents in there. I'm tipping my hammer. And one thing that I did notice too is that when you're drawing out and I'm tipping my hammer like this, if I'm tipped like this a little bit, it'll bow that way. If it's like that, it'll come back towards me. So I can look at it and make corrections as I'm going. If it starts to bow one way, I can tip my hammer up or down just a little bit. I'm also getting to the point where I need to clean out this fire a little bit if I keep going. It's taking a long time just to get a mediocre heat on it. Alright, hang on a sec. Pull most of this out of the way. Reach down into the bottom. Scoop out a massive amount of clinker. A couple more big ones. Back in before my fire goes out. Get the air back on. Ain't gonna Bill Paxton. I don't know who Bill Paxton is. So That's a piss poor reference for me, Rob. Did they give him a lobotomy or add a dick to him? Or if he's a politician, they might have done both. Oh crap, I didn't want to get political. I suppose that if I pick on all politicians, it's not really political. Because I'm not taking a side. Alright, let's get her back in there. Get her warming up. Now I gotta go and look up and see who Bill Paxton is. Just gotta make sure I keep track of my thing. Unexpectedly died after a planned heart surgery. Okay. Alright. Just going to keep working this handle end. Unfortunately, like I said, it works slower because it's pretty hard material. I mean, all the other ones I've done, I did out of just mild steel, and they go a lot easier than this. I doubt I'm going to get to the spreading it part tonight. Keep going, keep going. The other thing is when you've got a long skinny part like that and then it flares out, you always want to be careful. You're watching right where that real skinny part meets the part that flares out, they'll crack there. Quite often, if they're cold in that area and you're working even a couple inches away from it sometimes. See, we're starting to get, we got good thickness back here, and then we're tapering down. Then after I get the taper down, I'll start worrying about making the shape perfect. So you gotta have heart surgery? Oh yeah, Tim's gonna go, Rob's gonna go, Lexus is bitched out, so, you know, no more quad states there. Alright, before I get any thinner up here, I'm going to pinch down and make my piece for my little hook on the end. This little hook here. I've often wondered if I just take a Dremel and a real fine, you know, if I can get into these corners, if you just don't really have to do them really, really well, and then just give it a deeper etch, what it'd look like. You can see I'm starting to pinch off a little bit. Back in the fire. Kind of wanted this to be a little bit longer. Maybe I'll stretch that handle out a little more. Or maybe even the shaft. Give me a little bit more length. It's still pretty beefy. Just establishing some material there. It's pretty thick right now. Drawing out, it's getting smaller, so it's cooling faster. You don't get as much work done in the heat. Drawing it out. If it was steel, mild steel, I would go a little bit farther. I'd hammer a little bit longer. Go a little bit farther. I might go back, stretch the handle out a little longer. Then I might even go back and make the shaft a little smaller, get some more length out of it. It's kind of short. And looking in the fire too much, you can't see anything. Not really stretching it very much right now. I'm just trying to keep the thickness pretty even and get a nice long taper that doesn't have a lot of hammer marks or stuff in it. We're going to have to clean it all up later because it's pattern welded. So push it a little deeper. We'll go ahead and I shouldn't have pushed it so deep because I'm going to make the hook. And I got to make the scroll on the end first, so I guess I got to heat the end. I put my little scroll on the end, heat back in a little deeper. We got it started. I'll go back and just even that up. Getting closer. I think I can get it a little better looking than that. What I'm looking for now is I'm looking like down the center line and seeing if this sticks out about the same as that side. Just trying to get it somewhat even. Remember, it's pattern welded. I'll probably have to go back and sand the entire thing so I can fix some small mistakes a little later on. We're just working on making that handle look halfway decent. Now I'm going to push it through, get that hook on the other side of the fire, out of the fire a little bit. I'm going to kind of stretch that handle out a little bit more. I'm going to go right over to the power hammer and do it. Then I'll come back and refine the shape, but I just want to do some flattening over there. It's going to take me 3 or 4 heats to do what I want to do here. 1 heat over there. I can't say it's traditional anyway because, you know, I arc welded the billet together. I can't say it's all hand hammered because I hammered the billet together at the power hammer. So now we're at that point where it's just, it is what it is. I'm going to stand, you're going to actually not going to be able to see it. I tried to stand to the side earlier, but right now I'm going to be standing right at the end. Much faster, much easier. And what we've created is one big piece of junk. We can kill this. I let it get too cold and I have a crack right there. Don't know if you can see it right there. Huh. Well, you guys can't see it, but I can. Clear as day. I mean, I have a couple paths I can take. I could try to get it up to welding heat and weld it back together, but because the crack's running that way and I can't really compress it against it, you know, back together that way, it's probably not going to weld. I could probably put a tiny bit of regular arc weld in there and save it. But I don't want to go any farther because it will just crack off if I keep going. So while I decide how I'm going to do that, and like I said, I've already used the power hammer. You know, when I arc welded the billet together when I made the stack, so it's not entirely, you know, traditional anyway to begin with, so I guess it's not a big deal. I guess it wouldn't be a big deal if I took an arc welder and just a little bit. And if I thought it would stay together until the very end, then I would put just a tiny bit of braze because it would suck right in there and it would leave just the tiniest little line. Well, no, because that would eat out when I do the etch. So that won't work. What do you mean fuse welded? mean, I could theoretically take a small piece and lay it on top of that crack and weld it, you know, and just taper both sides off, weld it in, and then, but you'll have a big blob where that piece is in the pattern. And I think that I'll have a smaller blob if I just put a little with a welder. But I'm not going to do it right now. I'm going to deal with it and we'll come back to it later if I don't just finish it off, and then I will show everybody the finished product before, you know, I get rid of it. But I still got to figure out what I'm going to do for ironing the hat at next weekend's meeting. But you win a few, you lose a few, and sometimes knowing when to stop is 3/4 of that battle. Oh, oxyacetylene weld with no filler. Yeah, you can. Usually leaves a little divot though, so if you don't add any filler at all, you end up with a low spot. But I could probably make a low spot disappear when I do the finish grinding. Just waiting for it to get down cold enough that I can get it to show up on the camera. Trying to get the angle just right, because it's really a very small crack, and it's right there. I guess you can kind of see it right there. And it's only really in that corner. It doesn't go all the way across right now, but if I keep going, it may. Because it's at the junction of where this is round going to flat, yeah, I could oxyacetylene that, and I could also oxyacetylene that, and then take this down a little more and all this down a little more to give me a little more length, you know, because this is still well over 1/4 of an inch. I think that crack might have been from when I added more twist in this part. Okay, I thought I had a bad spot in here, but it was just some scale. Yeah, just scale. Still a little warm. I mean, I don't know if you can see it on the camera, but I can see the pattern in it. I don't think the camera's going to see it. Maybe. You see the pattern swirling that way. Alright, well, I'm going to figure out what I'm going to do with that. I'm pretty sure that because I'm this far into it, whichever, whether I just take a MIG welder and literally just squeeze the trigger and that's it, or if I oxyacetylene it, I'm sure it'll have a spot that you'll see in that pattern. But what are you going to do? It's that or throw it out and completely start over from scratch. And while it may not be perfect, I'm not going to sell it or anything, so it's not, you know. I definitely, no matter how well it comes out, if it's got that bad spot in it, that visual blob of weld somewhere, I know that I won't put my touch mark on it. Which, so if anybody asks me in the future, I can always just deny it and say, oh no, that's not mine. Because it won't have to touch mine. Alright, then we'll let that go out. I'm calling it, guys. I'll decide what to do with that, and we'll either pick up where we left off, or if I get time, I might finish it. I mean, I'm not going to have it done for next weekend's Iron in the Hat, so now I got to figure out what I'm going to bring for that. But who knows? All right. Yeah, I mean, I know how to oxyacetylene weld, and I could take it to work and fuse it together with an even smaller affected area if I go to work and use the TIG welder. I can't use my TIG welder here because I don't have a bottle of argon. And my TIG welder, I've got argon CO2 right there, oxy and acetylene tanks, but I don't have a bottle of straight argon for the TIG. But I could do that, take it in and have the guys just, hey, look, just TIG that right together. But it may have a bunch of stuff stuck in it. And when you go to TIG it or oxyacetylene weld it, that stuff's going to float up out, but then it's going to leave a big divot. And you'll have to add filler metal. But, alright, I'm out.